Are you ready to face the unknown? To confront nightmares that lurk beneath the surface of our world?" Those words echoed in my mind as I sat in the operations center, eyes glued to the live feeds from Raptor Team's helmet cams. My name is Colonel James Stanton, and I was responsible for guiding these men through what could only be described as a journey into hell. The intelligence briefing had been chilling. An underground bioweapons research facility, hidden in a dense jungle, had come under our radar. Reports indicated illicit activities that tested the limits of human depravity, human experimentation, gene splicing, and monstrous creations. My job was to ensure the team's success and their safe return. Our six-man team, Raptor Team, had been spun up for this high-risk raid. I watched them prepare, each man meticulously checking his gear. Night vision goggles, silenced weapons, C4, breach charges, trauma kits, everything they needed for a mission where failure was not an option. Their faces were masks of determination, each knowing the gravity of the task ahead. At 0200 hours, the MH-60 helicopter lifted off, carrying the team towards their insertion point. The rotors cut through the night, a rhythmic beat that matched my own racing heart. I monitored the live feed as they fast-roped into the dense jungle, their movements precise and silent. The jungle swallowed them, the darkness almost palpable. "Raptor 1 to FOB. We're on the ground," Captain Harper's voice came through the comms, calm and steady. Harper was the team leader, a seasoned operative with a reputation for getting the job done. His confidence was reassuring, but the unease in my gut wouldn't abate. They moved through the jungle with practiced efficiency, navigating the thick foliage and avoiding enemy patrols. The facility's entrance loomed ahead, a stark contrast to the wild surroundings. The team formed a two-man stack at the door, Harper and Sergeant Price in front. The breach charge was set, and with a muffled thud, the door splintered open. Inside the facility was a stark, sterile environment. The team's night vision goggles painted everything in shades of green, shadows dancing at the edges of their vision. The air was cool and smelled faintly of antiseptic, a sharp contrast to the humid jungle outside. They moved swiftly, clearing and marking rooms per standard close-quarters battle (CQB) procedure. "Clear," came the repeated confirmations from each room they entered. But as they moved deeper, the atmosphere grew heavier, a sense of unease settling over them. Signs of human experimentation became apparent. Cages lined the walls, some filled with the skeletal remains of former occupants. Restraints hung from tables, twisted and stained. Medical equipment lay scattered, some of it still functional, most of it grotesquely repurposed. Harper paused at a workstation, his cam feed showing a scattered collection of video logs and notes. "FOB, we found something," he said, his voice tense. The video logs depicted scientists discussing their experiments with an almost maniacal zeal. They spoke of gene splicing, of pushing the boundaries of human potential. But there was a darkness in their eyes, a sense of something gone terribly wrong. As Harper scanned through the notes, I felt a chill run down my spine. The scientists had created something, a creature born from their twisted experiments. The notes were frantic, filled with descriptions of uncontrollable growth, unprecedented aggression, and the repeated phrase, "We are not in control." A sudden roar echoed through the facility, primal and filled with rage. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very walls. "Contact!" Harper's voice was sharp, urgent. The team moved into defensive positions, their weapons trained on the darkness ahead. The first attack came with blinding speed. A blur of motion and violence, a creature emerged from the shadows, grotesque and nightmarish. It moved with an almost supernatural agility, its eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. Bullets ricocheted off its armored hide, the team's efforts seemingly futile. Corporal Jenkins' feed went dark first, the sound of his screams sending a jolt of fear through me. Sergeant Price's cam showed him firing at point-blank range before he too was taken down, his feed cutting out abruptly. Harper and the remaining team members, Lieutenant Reynolds and Specialist Diaz, regrouped, their breaths heavy and ragged. They moved towards the central lab, the sounds of the creature echoing behind them. "We need to set the charges," Harper panted, his cam showing the others nodding in grim determination. They planted the explosives, their movements quick and efficient despite the mounting terror. "Charges set, moving to extraction," Harper reported, but the creature was still on their trail. They fought their way back, the darkness pressing in on them. Diaz's cam showed the creature closing in, its eyes gleaming with unholy light. "We're almost there," Reynolds urged, but the exit seemed a lifetime away. They reached the elevator, and Harper hit the button with trembling fingers. The doors slid shut just as the creature lunged, its roar of frustration reverberating through the steel. "FOB, we're coming out," Harper said, his voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. But as the elevator ascended, the comms crackled with an eerie, distorted signal. It was faint, almost lost in the noise, but it carried a chilling implication. Is the monster still alive? Descending into the heart of darkness, the team emerged from the elevator into the bowels of the facility. The air was thick with the stench of decay, a cloying mix of antiseptic and rot that clung to the back of the throat. Night vision goggles bathed the world in an unearthly green glow, casting long, eerie shadows down the stark, sterile corridors. "Stay sharp," Harper whispered, his voice a harsh rasp over the comms. The team moved forward, weapons raised, every step measured and cautious. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft footfalls and the distant hum of machinery. They were deep in enemy territory now, and the walls seemed to close in around them as if the facility itself were a living, breathing entity. The first lab they entered was a nightmare made manifest. Cages lined the walls, each containing the twisted remains of whatever had been unfortunate enough to end up here. Skeletal figures, barely recognizable as human, huddled in corners, their empty eye sockets staring accusingly. Restraints dangled from tables, stained with dried blood and other, less identifiable fluids. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and each breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. "Jesus Christ," Reynolds muttered, his voice trembling. "What the hell happened here?" Harper didn't respond. His eyes were locked on a series of video logs displayed on a cracked monitor. The scientists, speaking with manic intensity, detailed their experiments with gene splicing, pushing the boundaries of what was ethically and morally acceptable. They spoke of creating the perfect soldier, a being of unparalleled strength and ferocity. But their eyes betrayed them. There was fear there, an acknowledgement that they had unleashed something they could no longer control. "FOB, we've found confirmation of bioweapons research," Harper reported, his voice tight. "Human experimentation, gene splicing. It's worse than we thought." As they moved deeper into the facility, the sense of dread intensified. The walls seemed to close in, the air growing thicker, more oppressive. They entered another lab, this one filled with rows of containment tanks. Each tank held a grotesque parody of life. Half-formed creatures suspended in murky fluid, their eyes closed in an eternal, tortured sleep. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the facility, primal and filled with unimaginable agony. It was followed by a series of guttural roars and the unmistakable sound of flesh being torn apart. "Contact!" Diaz shouted, swinging his weapon towards the source of the noise. The creature emerged from the shadows, a hulking monstrosity covered in bone-like armor. Its eyes gleamed with a malevolent intelligence, and its mouth was a gaping maw filled with razor-sharp teeth. The team opened fire, bullets sparking off the creature's hide. It moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. Diaz was the first to go down. His screams cut short as the creature's claws tore through him. Blood sprayed across the walls, the metallic scent filling the air. "Fall back!" Harper commanded, but the creature was relentless. It lunged at Reynolds, who managed to get a shot off before being slammed into the wall with bone-crushing force. Harper and Jenkins retreated, their breaths ragged, the sounds of the creature's pursuit echoing behind them. They reached a secure lab, slamming the door shut behind them. Harper frantically checked his ammo, his hands shaking. "We can't fight this thing head-on," he muttered. "We need to find another way." Jenkins nodded, his face pale. "We have to complete the mission. We need to set the charges and destroy this place." They moved quickly, planting explosives at key points throughout the lab. Each second felt like an eternity, the tension mounting with every heartbeat. The creature's roars grew louder, closer, a constant reminder of the death that stalked them. As they set the final charge, the creature burst through the door, its eyes burning with hatred. Jenkins fired, his shots barely slowing it down. Harper armed the last explosive, the timer ticking down as he backed away. "Jenkins, move!" he shouted, but it was too late. The creature was upon him, claws rending flesh from bone. Harper could do nothing but watch as his friend was torn apart, his screams echoing through the facility. With the charges set, Harper made his way back towards the elevator, the sounds of the creature's rampage growing fainter. His breath came in ragged gasps, his vision blurring. He staggered into the elevator, the doors sliding shut just as the first explosions rocked the facility. The last moments of the mission replayed on a loop in the operations center. Harper's breathless report, the screams, the roars, and the final explosion as the charges detonated. I sat at the console, my hands gripping the edge of the table, watching the live feed from Harper's helmet cam as the elevator ascended. "Raptor 1, report," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The static-filled comms carried no immediate response, the silence heavy with implications. The elevator doors opened, and Harper stumbled out, bloodied and battered but alive. He moved with a limp, his breath ragged, but his eyes were filled with a grim determination. The facility behind him was a crumbling ruin, the charges detonating in a series of deafening explosions that reverberated through the jungle. "FOB, this is Raptor 1, Harper finally responded, his voice strained. "Mission complete. Returning to base." Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by the knowledge of what had been lost. "Acknowledged, Raptor 1. Evac is en route. Hold your position." "Stay sharp," I whispered, more to myself than to them. The jungle was alive with unseen threats, every shadow a potential danger. The helicopter touched down and Harper climbed aboard, his body sagging with the weight of fatigue. As they ascended, I watched the helmet cam feeds, the jungle receding below them. The facility was a smoldering ruin, but the sense of unease remained. Something gnawed at the back of my mind, a feeling that the mission wasn't truly over. Then it happened. The helicopter jerked violently, the remaining cams capturing the chaos inside as the team struggled to maintain control. The screen went black, and the comms filled with the sound of tearing metal and terrified screams. "We're going down!" The helicopter's descent was rapid and brutal, the remaining feeds capturing brief glimpses of the jungle rushing up to meet them. Then, silence. The screens went dark, one by one, until there was nothing but the oppressive quiet of the operations center. "Raptor 1, do you copy?" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. "Raptor 1, respond." There was no answer. The silence stretched on, heavy and final. The mission was over, and the team was gone. I stared at the blank screens, the weight of what had happened crashing down on me. The facility was destroyed, but at what cost? And more importantly, had the true threat been neutralized? Or was it still out there, lurking in the shadows? In the dim light of the room, the eerie, distorted radio signal from the mission replayed in my mind. It was faint, almost lost in the noise, but it carried a chilling implication. Is the monster still alive? The uncertainty lingered, a shadow that refused to lift. As I sat there, staring at the dark screens, the question echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurk in the depths of human ambition. The mission was over, but the nightmare had only just begun.